Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint by Sing Shong. Chapter 397. A Certain Heart. Part 4. Skills are evolving due to attributes evolution. Exclusive skill, demon slaying, is evolving to god slaying. Exclusive skill, Hour of Judgment's activation criteria is being modified. Zhang Huiwen looked down at both of her hands, currently covered in the blinding aura. One hand was dyed in the pure white light, while the other, pitch black. All of Reincarnators is looking at you. The ones cheering her on were no longer the constellations. Inhabitants of Isle of Reincarnators are looking at you. No, it was people she had protected until now. Demon Kings began glaring at Zhang Huiwen in utter disbelief. Her attribute has evolved? Not bad. I see that the scenario has bestowed its grace unto you. However, they didn't seem to be panicking. No matter what, Zhang Huiwen was still an incarnation, someone who couldn't borrow Auriel's powers or the blessings of Eden. But regardless of all that, she still took a step towards the Demon Kings. Exclusive skill, Hour of Judgment, is activating. Hajenti caught on to what she was trying to do and began laughing in derision. You still haven't wisened up yet. Doesn't matter what your attribute evolves into, the archangels will never lend their powers to you. Skill, Hour of Judgment, needed to borrow probability from the absolute good, so without the permission of the applicable constellations, it could not be used. However, a string of strange messages suddenly popped out of nowhere. Hour of Judgment no longer requires the consent of the constellations on the side of absolute good. Hour of Judgment no longer needs to borrow probability from the nebulas on the side of absolute good. Constellations on the side of absolute good are greatly flustered by Incarnation Zhang Huiwen's change. I don't need to get their stupid consent anymore, said Zhang Huiwen, now neither good nor evil. We decide who will be judged from now on. Sparks danced wildly around her figure as she gripped the Sword of Judgment. Demon King Hajenti took several steps back, almost reflexively, after sensing her suspicious aura. What is this? Exclusive skill, Hour of Judgment, is receiving the blessing of Kim Dokja Company. Voting rights have been distributed to the members of Kim Dokja Company. A portion of the members are unable to participate in the voting. Only the members that can will participate in the voting. And then, the voting began. Incarnation E.G. Hai agrees with the judgment. Incarnation Shin Yusung agrees with the judgment. Incarnation E. Gilyang agrees with the judgment. Incarnation Zhang Huiwen agrees with the judgment. All members able to participate have agreed with your judgment. Zhang Huiwen looked at the collapsed Yi Haiyan Song at his cold, unmoving body. This judgment would be for him. Su Chuchuchut. Hour of Judgment has activated. Activation time will be curtailed due to an insufficient number of members participating in the vote. Your physical abilities will transcend the scenario's probability for the next 4 minutes. All of your fables will transcend the scenario's probability for the next 4 minutes. And her blade moved. With a speed that not even Demon Kings could catch, in order to judge the ones she desperately wanted to judge. At that moment, she thought that everything besides her had come to a standstill. They referred to themselves as stars, with such low speed? Hajenti was blinking its eyes in sheer disbelief. An enormous amount of probability was spent and sparks exploded forth in the air, perhaps to provide proof of Zhang Huiwen having judged something at this very moment. Kiok. Hajenti's heart, cut out from its body, was now palpitating on top of the blade of the Sword of Judgment. Zhang Huiwen was bathed in the spray of the dying Demon King's blood. She slowly opened her lips. None of you will return alive. She was given 4 minutes. But that was plenty enough time for her. Hajenti's head flew off along with the rising fountain of blood. Demon King, Golden Horned Ox, has died. Demon King, Golden Horned Ox, has been defeated in the regional conflict. The President of Flames, Amy, muttered in sheer astonishment. Hajenti? She exhibited the power capable of killing the 48th ranked Demon King in one hit. No demon king alive had seen such a feat achieved by a measly little incarnation until now. But, such insane probability can't be allowed. Demon kings now found themselves in the pit of sheer shock and couldn't shut their slack jaws. A tragedy for one side would become a farce for the other. Reincarnators had been forced back by the overwhelming might of the demon kings until then, but now, they began throwing themselves at the miracle taking place right before their eyes. Let's go. We can win this. Let's join forces. Protect Zhang Huiwan Nim. Demon kings watched the reincarnators rushing towards them and roared out in anger. Zhang Huiwan had vanished from her spot by then. She reappeared like it was some sort of magic, and the afterimage of her blade shattered Amy's spear. Crack! The demon king witnessed its spear of flames that couldn't be broken by any known object shatter into pieces, and its eyes shot wide open. And along with its wide open eyes, Amy's world came to a crashing end with another single attack. Demon King, President of Flames, has died. Demon King, President of Flames, has been defeated in the regional conflict. It was an obvious result. Even the 48th ranked Hajenti had died in a single hit, so there was no way that the lower-ranked Amy could withstand Zhang Huiwan at this stage. The vigor of the reincarnators soared even higher, and the fighting spirit seething within the battlefield climbed higher, as well. Wueng! Wueng! Zhang Huiwan ran forward while fighting against the pain severe enough to seemingly burn her eyes. She cut down the pouncing dark warriors, and then cut some more, for the sole aim of taking yet another demon king's head. Oh, Incarnation, you're truly naive. You're simply borrowing the strength of a single nebula, are you not? The master of the 36th demon world, the owl with silver-colored claws, Stolas, might have lacked noticeable combat prowess, but it was still one of the demon kings possessing a great pool of knowledge. It had caught the presence of the ring of chaos within Zhang Huiwan's eyes and cried out loudly. That is the power of chaos. A power that is neither good nor evil, birthed from the beginning of everything, and originates from outside the scenarios. If you use that power, dash. Shut up. Zhang Huiwan jumped up and ripped Stolas's wings off. The owl demon king screeched in pain, and its silver-colored claws pierced into her thighs and shoulders. Torn flesh flung into the air as the attack that disregarded her own safety continued on. Broken fables sprayed onto the ground like real blood. However, she paid no heed and wielded her sword. She swung it again and again regardless of whether her innards spilt out or her cheeks were gouged out. Her thoughts were dominated by the singular mission of shattering the head of the demon king before her and to end its life for good. And so, after the blink of an eye where she swung her sword around 50 or so times, the head of a dead owl could be found in her grip. Demon King, owl with silver-colored claws, has died. Demon King, owl with silver-colored claws, has been defeated in the regional conflict. Pant, pant. She had displayed the combat power capable of slaying 3 demon kings all by herself. Many constellations are astonished by Incarnation Zhang Huiwan's strength. Constellations on the side of absolute good find Incarnation Zhang Huiwan to be ominous and unsettling. Constellations on the side of absolute evil are scared of Incarnation Zhang Huiwan. Stars of good and evil had divided the sky, and beyond the divide, there were other gazes looking at her. They belonged to those beings that didn't hold any prior interest in her. Outer gods are paying attention to Incarnation Zhang Huiwan. As she was bathed by the numerous gazes of the stars above, Zhang Huiwan continued to move forward. There were currently 2 demon kings remaining. My apologies, but I don't enjoy such a situation. So, farewell. Those words belonged to a certain demon king who had been reciting a lengthy incantation the moment Zhang Huiwan had gone through her awakening. Demon King of seduction and infertility, is leaving the regional conflict after paying an enormous amount of probability. She belatedly threw her blade at the creature, but the Demon King of seduction and infertility Zipar had already vanished from the spot by then. She gnashed her teeth and shifted her gaze into the sky. Now, only one Demon King remained. The supposed master of the 16th demon world running away with his tails between his legs because of a mere incarnation. How shameful. It was the demon king who murdered Hyun Song, the master of the 8th demon world, the merciless hunter against the will of heavens, Barbados. Even when it had witnessed Jong Hui-won's abnormal feats, Barbados didn't try to escape. Demon King, merciless hunter against the will of heavens, is unleashing its status. Barbados was actually able to match Jong Hui-won's speed with Hour of Judgment, still active. It chose its actions just as quickly as her, and could attack at the same time as her, too. It fought in an unbelievably skillful and destructive manner. Jong Hui-won was getting pushed back little by little. As if it was enjoying this, Barbados laughed out. Your fable is destructively beautiful. As the fight wore on, Jong Hui-won gradually realized how truly strong Barbados was. The Demon King hadn't been going all out until now. This was the difference between one spent lifetime, something she couldn't hope to catch up to, no matter what. Blood poured out from her punctured side. She used the flames of hellfire to singe the wound. Barbados didn't miss this opening and kicked her in the stomach. She vomited out a mouthful of blood and managed to barely force herself back up. 1 minute of Hour of Judgment activation time remaining. Jong Hui-won fixed her grip on the sword, her hand now showing the bones underneath the skin. Is it impossible with the amount of time I've lived so far? Blessing from Kim Dokja Company has strengthened. Something began granting additional power to her in that state. Great Fable, Keixenix Archipelago, is looking at you. It was the history she lived in. Constellation, Master of Steel, is looking at you. They were the ones who loved the same thing as her. Clong. Jong Hui-won held the sword with both of her hands and defended against Barbados's bayonet attacks. Bayonet fighting, a man she knew was also proficient in it. You usually yell out louder and louder the harder it gets in the military. After I yell out every morning, I get that feeling that I will be able to endure the rest of the day somehow. Hi F. Jong Hui-won yelled out exactly like Hyun Song. Barbados's bayonet pierced into her waist, but she gripped the weapon tighter so that it wouldn't get pulled out. Along with the sound, "Poo-okay," the bayonet penetrated even deeper into her waist. Even then, she took another step forward. Even I start things without a plan sometimes. It's not like I've calculated everything beforehand, you know. She summoned forth her courage like Kim Dokja, and you shouldn't be wielding it like that. And swung her sword exactly like Young Hyok. Slice. Sword of Judgment, sliced into a part of Barbados's forearm. Ah? The Demon King saw the fragments of fables dyed in crimson hue explode forth, and its brows quivered greatly. In that moment, she thought she could hear Han Soo-young's laughter. You know this too, right? The last one to laugh is the winner. Jong Hui-won spoke, exactly like how Ha Soo-young would have done. If you want my bones, I shall give them to you. If you want my heart, then I will gladly hand it over. Her attitude of not caring about what kind of attacks her body had received, her method of fighting, solely focused on destroying her opponent. However, you will have to risk half of all your fables. All facets of the fables she had pushed to their absolute limits began glowing brightly now. Barbados fell into a fluster and backed away while firing a barrage of star destruction bullets. However, she easily evaded them all. The bullets simply couldn't match her speed as she grew faster and faster. The storm of probabilities aftermath was slowly rushing in to arrest her entire body. Her hair began to turn snow white, the price to pay for exceeding her own status. Even then, she didn't back down. All she wished for was to kill this Demon King. Jong Hui-won's blade flashed like a ray of light and sliced Barbados's left wrist off. It couldn't hold on to its rifle anymore, and the Demon King spat out a pained groan. It then quickly hopped onto the deck of the battleship it brought to the battlefield earlier. I shall destroy you. I won't even leave behind any trace of you. Barbados's battleship began advancing forward as it emitted chilling blue light. Jong Hui-won watched all this unfold as a smile floated up onto her lips. The fact that it judged fighting her without borrowing the power of that fable weapon was impossible. Now that was exactly the same as admitting its own defeat. The Demon King must have realized it as well, because rage was filling up its expression now. Be gone. Zhang Huiwen stabbed her sword into the ground and stood tall. If it was possible, she'd like to destroy that ship, too. Activation duration of Hour of Judgment has ended. Unfortunately, she no longer had any time left. The battleship's eagle statue died in the greenish hue, and its cannons began spitting out flames next, seemingly with enough might to sweep away the entirety of this regional conflict region. Zhang Huiwen pulled Yi Hyansong's sagging body closer and hugged it. Hyansong SSI. I really did my best. I don't have a single regret left now. I was not wrong. Even if my scenario comes to an end in this place, I have lived this moment the way it's supposed to be. The once lethargic perception speed gradually reverted back to how it was. She didn't turn her gaze away from the battlefield and continued to stare at the magic shells raining down. Sadly, though, her vision continued to grow fuzzier and she couldn't see. Without a doubt, she had poured everything out, yet why were tears coming out only now? As her vision grew blurrier, she began crying in great indignation. How could she not have any regrets? Why is everyone from our nebula like this? Someone suddenly spoke out in a loud ringing voice. Constellation, Maritime War God, is furious. Zhang Huiwen was stunned by the indirect message coming from a familiar constellation and quickly wiped her eyes away. Since she hadn't closed them, she was able to see the miracle taking place right before her. Kugugugugu. A battleship even larger than Barbatos's was now dominating the entire sky above the battlefield. Someone has joined the 117th regional conflict. The ship had a turtle-like back made out of futuristic metal. And 3 people she loved so much were riding on top of its figurehead. Kuaa! With excellent timing, Barbatos's bullet flew in. Zhang Huiwen reached out with her hand in great urgency and called out. Avoid it. Her cries were buried under the loud cannon fires. She plopped down to the ground as the ripples from the explosion swallowed up the whole battlefield. On the spot where the thick smoke dissipated, the battleship stood proudly, with nary a single scratch. Influence of Kim Dokja Company in the applicable scenario has strengthened even further. E.G. Hai and the kids revealed themselves as the smoke of the battlefield abated. With a perfectly still expression, E.G. Hai raised her sword. Load the cannons. Chapter 398. A Certain Heart. Part 5. The Demon King and its stunned expression could be seen in the distance. The hull of the ship was unscathed even after getting struck by the star destruction bullet fired by Barbatos. The bullet capable of erasing even a star couldn't penetrate past that turtle-like back shell. Incarnation E.G. Hai has begun her command. Incarnation E.G. Hai has activated Stigma, Ghost Fleet LV.10. A ghostly armada of 12 ships used the approaching Dark Warriors as the waves and floated up. Soon after, their cannons began firing in unison. Barbatos gnashed its teeth at the sudden barrage of cannon fire. You dare, with such measly little. The Demon King's own battleship, Nighthawk, was truly sturdy. Although it wasn't assembled with futuristic cutting-edge technology, still, it was a weapon created by painstakingly gathering fables of the demon world. Ghost Fleet alone was insufficient to deal with this enemy. However, E.G. Hai didn't panic. No, she simply observed her enemy with a calm, composed expression. Kugugugu. As the Ghost Fleet continued its barrage, the reddish light was gathered in the dragon-like figurehead of the ship covering the sky. Great Fable, Next City, has begun its storytelling. Zhang Huiwen looked up at E.G. Hai's current appearance. She had no way of knowing how the latter managed to come here or what sort of a worldview she had experienced. The one thing she was certain of, though, was the knowledge that the trio of kids managed to survive something just as harsh as the tragedy she had to live through in the Keixenix archipelago. A ship built upon crude fables dares to. Barbatos's side finished charging up its attack first and fired it. Kuwa dash. The force behind the shot was at least double that of the previous attack. No matter how strong Ijihai's battleship was, it wouldn't be easy to defend against this particular star destruction bullet. 5 ships at the front of the Ghost Fleet couldn't endure against the magical energy behind the attack and were extinguished immediately. Even then, Ijihai calmly waited until that cannon shell moving at a slow but assured speed reached right in front of her nose. Just a little bit more. A bit more. Constellation, maritime war god, is looking at his incarnation. Fragments of fables, scattering in the air, brushed past her cheeks. And just before the fable of Ghost Fleet being destroyed one after the other could reach her and her 2 companions like a wall of white bubbles, Ijihai lowered her sword. Fire! Everywhere was seemingly dyed in bright light. Violent, vicious rebound rocked the hull. Strong winds wildly whipped her already undone hair about. The fable's energy shooting out from the dragon head swept absolutely everything away in the vicinity. The star destruction bullet, dyeing its surroundings in darkness, had been extinguished already. Many constellations are suspicious of the applicable fable weapon's probability. The fable weapon, Turtle Dragon. That was the name of the weapon that the maritime war god had commissioned when he came to visit the next city a long time ago, but didn't have the chance to collect it yet. Many constellations can't close their jaws due to their great shock. Accompanied by a loud explosion, the sounds of something being destroyed could be heard, along with the Demon King's horrible scream. Ijihai issued another order. Fire! Her voice didn't waver in the slightest, as if to spit out all of her accumulated grievances. The Ghost Fleet re-emerged and began their simultaneous bombardment once more, while the Turtle Dragon's main cannon also spat out another round, as well. Fire! Everything on the opposing side of the battlefield was gradually disappearing, Barbatos's battleship, the Dark Warriors, everything. All those hoping to convert Zhang Huiwen's and Yi Hyansong's story to a tragedy were now the subjects of Ijihai's wrath. Our fables aren't for your entertainment, she said. She wobbled slightly as the shelling continued on. However, she never faltered once. She was no longer that girl who feared the ocean, but a commander of this vessel. Fire! Kawa dash! Under the explosions of the energy created by the cannon barrage, Barbatos's status was steadily being erased. And until every single one of the Demon King's fables were completely gone, Ijihai didn't let up with the bombardment, and ordered their firing again and again. Zhang Huiwen looked up at that spectacle. That girl was clearly straining herself. Su-cha-cha-chat. Sparks now filled up the battlefield. 2 kids broke past the continuous chain of explosions and landed on the ground. They were Shin Yusung and Yi Gilyong. Huiwen Uni. Are you alright? Nuna. Aided by the kids, Zhang Huiwen carried Yi Hyansong to the battleship, and approached Ijihai at the deck still commanding the bombardment. Jihaya. Constellation, maritime war god, is exhausting his remaining energy right down to his limit. Their opponent was a top-ranking Demon King. Even if they acquired a fable weapon, even if they borrowed the probability of Kim Dokja Company, and even after the fable-grade constellation maritime war god had come to help, a price had to be paid in order to create a miracle like this. Jihaya, it's okay now. Zhang Huiwen knew why Ijihai was so furious right now. The moment she stepped into the battlefield, she had figured out what happened here. And that was why she didn't hold back at all. Ghost Fleet is returning. The scenario messages could be heard coming from the distance. Demon King, merciless hunter against the will of heavens, has died. Demon King, merciless hunter against the will of heavens, has been defeated in the regional conflict. It was a truly splendid feat achieved by only 3 incarnations. A Demon King ranked 8th in the rankings, as well as 3 others, had lost their lives in this battlefield. Indirect messages continued to stream in among the outpouring of cheers from the reincarnators. Constellations leaning towards absolute evil can't take their eyes away from this unbelievable feat. Constellations leaning towards absolute good are forming complicated expressions. Neutral-leaning constellations are cheering on at this impossible battle. Many constellations are paying the cost of the impossible scenario. A big player in the sponsorship community has sponsored a large amount of coins. 1,100,000 coins have been sponsored. E.G. Hai wiped away the blood trickling down from her nose and smiled brightly. Even though she was smiling, she was crying, too. Uni. 117th Regional Conflict has concluded. Reward calculation for the 117th Regional Conflict has commenced. Victors and losers exist in the 117th Regional Conflict. Zhang Huiwen stared up at those messages with dazed eyes. Good has won in the applicable regional conflict. Plus. Current state of Great War's progress, absolute good points, 68. Absolute evil points, 67, chaos points, 70. Plus. The 117th regional conflict didn't end in the way Kim Dokja Company had planned. Well, E.G. Hai belatedly joining the battle didn't know of the plans their Nebula had for the Great War of Saints and Demons, that was why. However, it wasn't as if their plan had completely failed either. Power of Chaos intervened in the applicable battlefield. Chaos points have increased by 5. Chaos points have reached 75. Chaos points rate of increase is speeding up. Shadowy outer gods are calling out to incarnation, Zhang Huiwen. Foreign gods beyond the galaxy are paying attention to incarnation Zhang Huiwen's status. Zhang Huiwen looked at the infinity symbol that had appeared on the backs of her hands. She acquired them after awakening the new attribute, Judge of Apocalypse. Kim Dokja hadn't told her about this marking before. Hyansonghyang? The eyes of Yi Gilyang, checking for the sagging Yi Hyansong's pulse, grew wider. Shin Yusung was taken by surprise too, and hurriedly pressed her ear to the unmoving man's chest. Zhang Huiwen watched them and spoke in a suffering tone of voice. Hyansong SSI is dead. She couldn't finish her sentence, however, because she thought that it had become reality if she ended up saying it. All regional conflicts have come to an end. Scenario's chaos points have increased too much and the main scenario has been updated. Scenario jump has occurred. Linked scenario has been generated. They weren't even given enough time to grieve. In the world of the star stream, the scenario would never look back to the past, that was why. New main scenario has arrived. Plus. Main scenario number 84, Great War of Saints and Demons type, main. Difficulty, indeterminable. Clear condition, someone who's neither absolute good nor absolute evil has made the good/evil of the battlefield unclear. The most ancient good and the most ancient evil wish for a definite conclusion. They have agreed to decide the outcome on one great battlefield. If you wish to see the end of a great fable, you must immediately join the great battlefield. Time limit. Reward, Great Fable-related Great War of Saints and Demons? Failure, death. Plus. The great battlefield of the Great War of Saints and Demons is opening up. Victor of this great battlefield will acquire 30 good/evil points. What's this? Just as E.G. Hai muttered out in confusion, the regional conflict zone was rocked by a dull, heavy tremor. The voice of a Dakibi could be heard within the wild explosion of sparks going, Su Chechit. You must have been bored stiff by being confined to small battlefields, haven't you? The real Great War of Saints and Demons will start from now on. The time and space torn asunder by the heavens and earth, violently convulsing, began coalescing back into one. By the time they opened their eyes, Zhang Huiwen and the kids found themselves standing on a seemingly endless vast plain. The skies were dark and gloomy, while the reddish ground was filled by the fable fragments and broken skulls of angels and demons that had rotted away a long time ago. This very location was where the final battle of the First Great War of Saints and Demons took place. Constellations and incarnations participating in other regional conflicts began gathering here. Nebula, Papyrus, has joined the great battlefield. Nebula, Tamna, has joined the great battlefield. Nebula, Hongik, has joined the great battlefield. Nebula, Guardian Tree, has joined the great battlefield. Hey, Xing Yusung, over there. It'll be fine. We leveled up plenty, didn't we? Great Fable, next city, is protecting the children. The gathered status was so great that just by standing in this field made their spirits falter. Zhang Huiwen couldn't even begin to fathom just how many constellations were participating in this great battle. A great number of constellations are showing animosity towards Kim Dokja Company. Gazes that had actual form behind them could become dangerous. Zhang Huiwen stood at the front of the group even though it was hard to steady herself. She was from Kim Dokja Company. And that was why she couldn't display any weakness in front of those nebulas. Just as another wave of enormous status was rushing towards her. Zhang Huiwen. Someone supported her from her back. Incarnation Han Suyang has joined the battlefield. Constellation Abyssal Black Flame Dragon is threatening the constellations of this great battlefield. You really look terrible. And what's the matter with your hair? I don't think you're in any position to talk about someone else. Zhang Huiwen smiled dryly, causing Han Suyang and her soot-covered face to shoot back a glare. The former then saw the constellation following behind the latter. Uriel. Constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is looking at her incarnation. Uriel, full of wounds, was looking back at Zhang Huiwen. There were faint traces of turbid aura around her wings. The latter saw that, and almost immediately felt relieved for some reason. Uriel hadn't betrayed her. Only a brief exchange of glances was enough to know that. Constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is. It's alright, Uriel. The archangel closed her mouth shut. Zhang Huiwen quietly observed her sponsor for a little while longer, before casting her gaze lower to the ground. They were a constellation and an incarnation, they didn't need to say something to understand what was on each other's minds. Constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is closing her eyes in pain. A humongous gate opened up on the other side of the battlefield. Its size was on another scale compared to the ones before. Nebula, Eden, has joined the great battlefield. Archangels and Valkyries entered the battlefield as the golden-colored horns blew noisily. Constellation, guardian of youth and travel, is looking at incarnation, Zhang Huiwen. Constellation, friend of justice and harmony, is sympathizing with incarnation, Zhang Huiwen. Constellation, lily blooming on Aquarius, finds it unfortunate what happened with incarnation, Zhang Huiwen. ED, lily pin of Aquarius, lily blooming on Aquarius. TL says pin is a generalized Korean term to denote a flower blooming on something/somewhere, but it was previously TL'd as if it was an actual pin. At that moment, Zhang Huiwen's irises, cast down to the ground, began blazing once more. Sympathy? Utterly disgusting. If only you people consented to the hour of judgment earlier. If only. Constellation, scribe of heaven, has entered the great battlefield. The leader of Eden made his entrance under the brilliant, blinding light show. Zhang Huiwen squeezed the sword of judgment tight and glared at Metatron. As if they were waiting for this moment, the others began making their entrance from the opposing gate. Demon King, ruler of East Hell, has joined the great battlefield. It was the great Demon King Agar's second in the rankings, as well as other Demon Kings. Demon King, Black Mane Lion, has joined the great battlefield. Demon King, Immeasurable Austerity, has joined the great battlefield. Demon King, Devil of Lust and Wrath, has joined the great battlefield. The top-ranked Demon Kings didn't cower one bit from the auras of the archangels. As their numbers increased, the complexions of Zhang Huiwen and the kids got poorer. Only then did they realize what kind of a battlefield this was. They also realized what kind of nebulas they were about to face off against. And finally, how small Kim Dokja Company actually was. Constellations and demon kings of the great battlefield are glaring at Kim Dokja Company. There were countless strong enemies present. As the threatening, intimidating auras of the constellations aimed at Kim Dokja Company bore down on them, the members heard their own breathing become heavier and quicker. Nebula, Asgard, has joined the great battlefield. Incarnation, Anna Croft, has joined the great battlefield. Zhang Huiwen flinched and took a look behind to find Anna Croft looking at her with both of her hands in the air. No need to be that wary. I'm not your enemy right now. Just before she could ask what those words meant. Incarnation, Yu Hyuk, has joined the great battlefield. A corner of the sky seemed to collapse and a man wearing a black coat made his entrance. He proudly stood tall, the viciously screeching edges of the dark heavenly demon sword bared its fangs at the constellations. The ends of Han Suyang's lips twitched as she made her comment. Again. You're acting like the MC again. Master. It was only one person, yet the atmosphere of the battlefield seemed to change simply from his appearance. Yu Hyuk scanned the companions and spoke. With the exception of one fool, everyone's here. No, everyone is here now. That last voice belonged to the one they were all waiting for. Zhang Huiwen didn't know what to do with the emotions suddenly welling up inside her, but still, shifted her gaze over in his direction. She wanted to tell him. She wanted to tell him what those bastards of constellations did in this place, but... I know, Huiwen SSI. Kim Dokja kid out in his white coat, was silently looking at Yi Hyansong on the ground. Demon King of Salvation, has joined the great battlefield.